So YouTube, I found myself at the DNC on the last day, the day of Kamala's speech, the ending, the denouement, the big shebang. Now, I knew that most of the media would be inside covering the amazing speeches, and I'm sure you all heard. I didn't know I was going to be outside documenting the rising tensions of thousands of pro-Palestinian demonstrators. I got interviews with some of these amazing protesters.
I think here in Chicago we have a large group of Palestinians that live here, and I want to stand in solidarity with them.
And I got footage of the whole thing, but if I'm honest, it seems to me that while these protests were important, I think they may have missed their mark by focusing solely on Democrats.
To me, the whole point is our Democratic Party, right? If we are left-leaning people, if we are people who care about this thing, like this is in a two-party system, this is our only option.
And that ended up being the overarching theme of all of them. It seemed to me that although important, I'll say it again, this was really the least that they could be doing.
Listen, God is not a God of war. God is a God of peace. But make no mistake, God is not to be played with.
I want to talk about it. Let's go.
To help stop the genocide that the Israelis are doing back with U.S. bombs and U.S. tax dollars, our tax dollars, if we can do anything we can, if this is the least thing I can do that can bring a small amount of change, I'll do it. If this is the least thing I can do that can bring a small amount of change, I'll do it.
So I grew up in Chicago, and as soon as I landed at O'Hare Airport, you could just tell something was off. Like, you know when you're home, you know the nuances, you feel it in the air. Inside the United Center, there was peaceful, joyous, awesome proceedings going on for the Democratic Party. You guys saw it. It was palpable. And I think it actually reached more people that may have been on the fence about who to vote for than any other convention in my lifetime. On the outside, the tension was mounting. So, despite the rising number of police in riot gear everywhere, I kind of knew maybe I needed to be here. Everyone could feel it. And I wanted to make sure that I kept an open mind. I wanted to find out for myself who these protesters were. There have been people talking about both sides, but not with both sides. And just then, I saw this. No fascist Trump, no killer Kamala, no genocide Joe. So I'm not really sure what then. What does that mean? If we're honest, you're not looking serious. It's not starting off on the best foot. But is this who they really are? Is this a true representation of who they really are? I say we find out. Meet Brian. Brian, nice to meet you. I see you're flying this flag here. What are you representing? What are you trying to accomplish here?
What am I trying to accomplish out here is to bring awareness, absolutely bring awareness and hopefully change. The least I can do is march and bring that establishment and let them know that the rights of indigenous people will not be infringed upon. Mm-hmm. Occupiers need to leave and leave us alone. I'm not Palestinian. Us being native, we sympathize and appreciate the struggle that the native people of Palestine are going through right now.
We are their future, their future generations. We are still alive, and I just feel that a lot of times people don't understand that, and it's because the erasure of our history. But I feel so aligned with the people of Palestine. I'm a Chicago public school teacher, and I try to bring this awareness to my students, but also, to people of, I think here in Chicago we have a large group of Palestinians that live here, and I want to stand in solidarity with them, because it's a shame that here we are all, Kamala and Walz, she said, the first woman, yes, you're right. However, our Democratic Party actually accepted more monies from for Israel, and that just is a shame for me, you know, than the Republican Party. And I'm just like, it's not that I don't want to see a female president. It's not that at all. It's just, hey, if you are going to be president, you better, or I'd really like for you to take into account the Palestinians. You know, it's not right.
Now that is 100% true. That's a fact. Democrats take more money from Israel-aligned PACs and lobbyists than Republicans do, and have been for a long time. But there's something in the numbers here that I think is really relevant to why we're marching, or more importantly, who we're marching against. You see those numbers there? Yeah, the circle. All of that same money went to one person in 2016 and 2020. Because even though they give money to both sides, even Israel knew exactly who they were getting on those dates. Can you guess who was running for office, or maybe why it was important to give money to Republicans more than anybody else in 2016 or in 2020?
How many of you have domestic violence charges? Raise your hand. Count them up.
Definitely the tamest protest I've ever been to. And that did not last long. I spoke too soon. You know that whole ominous feeling I was talking about, that slow burn I've been waiting for? Well, it finally reached its boiling point when thousands of people descended right here on these streets with drums and chants and shouts and anger. I'm going to be showing it to you later. Let's get back to the interview, and you're not going to want to miss this.
You know what? This is a vote of an anti-Trump vote. This isn't a vote for Harris. She's been appointed. She wasn't elected to this point that she's at right now, right? So, I mean, that's why I asked you if you're a reformist. The system that be, you want the system as be. You just want the right people to run it. I wouldn't necessarily say that I want the system to be at all. I'm about the anti-establishment, man, like an abolitionist, 100%. Bring it all down. However, I also live in the real world, knowing that if that orange guy does get elected, how shitty it's going to be, not only for regular people that live in what is now called the United States, but for the people, for the native people that are crossing over our ancestral lands to come into this country, for the ancestral people in other nations that we're bombing.
So I got to try to get this straight. I'm a reformist, and that sounded like maybe it wasn't a good thing. And he's not. But he's not a reformist until he has to be a reformist to make sure that the other guy doesn't become the president. To me, that sounds just like a citizen, like an American, like a voter, like a realist. So I think maybe I need to interrogate this a little further. Maybe I'm wrong, or I don't know what he means by reformist. Let's find out. If I get it, what you're saying right, my job, what I think is, I don't want no government. I'm not an anarchist, but I want to reform the one that we're in to work for the people. A Bernie Sanders supporter, a Jill Stein type person, right? But I do also know that a vote for Cornell or Stein right now is just a vote for Trump. So I have to also be a realist. Is that in line?
I would very much, I'd say disagree. I think what you're saying is true. In a fucked up way, right? In a fucked up way, with the nation that this is designed, Cook County and state of Illinois is not going orange. Even if I vote orange, Cook County's not going that way. Right. What you're talking about is in these places because of Electoral College. You're talking about the places not voting for the Democrats.
Like, I'm coming from Atlanta, so
yeah, that's not here in Illinois.
Right? No,
not here in Illinois.
Right.
So that's how democracy is so skewed here and not correct. So what you're saying in the bigger pictures in selective parts of what is now called the United States, but here in Chicago, here in Cook County, that ain't the case. That ain't the case at all. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I would look at the ballot at the time, and if Dr. Cornel West is on it, I'll give him my vote. Hell yeah. I don't want to throw away my vote just because out of fear. Because it's in places like Atlanta that we need you to do what needs to be done.
Okay.
And you're right. I will be protesting her because she's the one who's shaking hands with Netanyahu. She's the one who's supporting the sending of bombs and weapons over to Israel. She's the one making deals over there. Screw her too, man. Screw her too.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. From the sea to the river, Palestine will live forever. To the river.
And as you see the crowd growing, you see this protest really getting underway, and you find me caught in the middle of it here, I have to go back and I have to take some issue with what he was saying. I understand where they're coming from. Everyone in this crowd, I understand where they're coming from. But he said that he knows that Trump is the worst. And I mean, you could pick a reason. Any reason that matters to you. The end of democracy. Maybe his promise to finish the job, meaning destroy all the Palestinians, period, which would do his son-in-law just fine, because he said publicly that he wants to wipe them out and use the land for luxury homes. But I digress. The point is, you know that Trump is this bad in every way that matters, and you're willing to let me fight it in Atlanta, while you actively undermine my fight because it won't really matter in Cook County. I think that Atlanta comment is the most telling part. What they're fighting for, I agree with, and it is horrible. But they know that there's really no consequence here in Chicago. There's no real stake in this protest. They know Atlanta will be the ones putting up the real fight against the enemies that want to destroy us. Here, they know no matter how many people in police and riot gear they encounter or yell at, all of them are here for the DNC. Nothing can really happen. The fight won't be here.
Now, radical pro-Palestine people have resorted to confronting her in public, basically like roundabout, like threatening her public safety, pulling up on her, trying to confront her. Let's watch this foolishness.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me. You want to touch me. You think so? Okay, say. How many more kids have to die for you to call a genocide? Don't touch me. How many more kids? Get out of here. How many more kids, AOC? How many more kids have to die for you to call it a genocide? How many more kids? Don't touch me. How many more kids have to die for you to call it a genocide? Hey, how many more kids have to die? Tell me how many more kids? How many more? How many more? 10,000 more? 20,000? How many kids have to die?
He apparently didn't see where she called it a genocide in March in the Capitol. She did that. She did that, and apparently it's not enough.
A decent man who said that preventing genocide is an achievable goal. A goal that requires a level of government organization and engagement that matches in its intensity the brutality and efficiency required to carry out mass killing. Too often, these efforts have come too late, after the best and least costly opportunities to prevent them have been missed. The man that said that was then Vice President and now President Joseph Biden. And he was right. Mr. Speaker, I rise to say that such a time is now. As we speak, in this moment, 1.1 million innocents in Gaza are at famine's door. A famine that is being intentionally precipitated through the blocking of food and global humanitarian assistance by leaders in the Israeli government. This is a mass starvation of people, engineered and orchestrated, following the killing of another 30,000, 70% of whom were women and children killed. There is hardly a single hospital left. And this was all accomplished, much of this accomplished with U.S. resources and weapons. If you want to know what an unfolding genocide looks like, open your eyes. It looks like the forced famine of 1.1 million innocents. It looks like thousands of children eating grass as their bodies consume themselves while trucks of food are slowed and halted just miles away. It looks like good and decent people who do nothing.
Now here's my problem with the pro-Palestine movement. Approaching politicians who actively support what you support, who use the word genocide, approaching them like this, being actively antagonistic and banging on windows, you all are actual cowards. But MAGA actively just hates Palestinian people for literally no reason. And like, bro, their politicians are happy to cut funding to Ukraine, but send funding to Israel, and the far left just sits there and twiddles their thumbs because they're scared of getting elbowed in the neck and kicked in the eye by MAGA. Because they know if they pull up to Trump rallies and interrupt him while he's talking, they're going to push y'all down the flight of steps. Y'all aren't serious people, bro. You only attack the people that are on your side because you're afraid to attack the people who truly represent demonic forces of evil.
Political Drain, what's your name?
Ariel.
Ariel?
I'm AJ.
AJ?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you guys. So I see Free Palestine, no more tax dollars for genocide, funded by the Biden admin. Most important thing you want everyone to know as we're recording now.
I would just like to acknowledge that these numbers, this is the latest from the UN. And so these are numbers that, you know, is supported by WHO, supported by the United Nations, and that is a very extreme, you know, statistic.
Yeah.
And that alone also, this number right here does not include the people who are starving to death every day either. And so that is like, it's almost like uncountable. And so if we see 40,000, that is just confirmed deaths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of suffering going on there.
A lot of suffering.
What do you say to the people who say marching here is counterproductive to helping them because it may help fuel Republicans or it may stop people from voting for a Democrat, and getting the other side involved or getting the other side in office would be even worse than those numbers?
So I think that's a really interesting question. To me, what that sounds like is we cannot, as constituents, ask too much or be too angry at our political leaders because we don't want, you know, oh no, like they're gonna get like, we don't want to hurt their feelings, or
right.
We don't want to hurt, like, help the other side and all this type of stuff. But I don't think that's how politics works. I don't think that's how the world works, right? Like, to me, what this means is that like a bunch of people marching here today are gonna be voting Democrat, right? Or a lot of people marching today might be voting third party, might want to withhold their vote, specifically because of how the billions of dollars that Biden's been putting towards Palestine, right? Been putting towards a genocide.
And well, that's another side of this, isn't it? They want the Democratic person in there. And that's why they want the person who they think they can mold most, or they can hold to account and get the most from. That is noble. That I agree with. The only problem is these posters are in the same march that you're marching in. These ideas are being propagated by the same people that you're hoping will join you in changing the minds of other leftists, of other progressives. But what really happens is when you're only protesting this, and this is the only image that you're promoting, and when these are the only people that you can seem to fight against, the people who maybe you should be fighting against, like this guy.
In Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable.
If this was unfolding before the world, and any of these candidates were sitting in the Oval Office, the call to Israel's leadership would not be one of restraint, but escalation.
The first thing I said to him when it happened was, I said, finish them.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, not only do you have the responsibility and the right to wipe Hamas off of the map, we will support you.
There seemed to be a consensus on cracking down on colleges that allow pro-Palestinian protests, potentially cutting off their funding and kicking foreign students out of the country if they participate.
Do you know anything about Jared Kushner, and in the last Trump presidency, that he was the one to help broker these deals that are now fueling these wars, trying to eradicate Palestinians, to use their land for luxury homes, for places for kings to reside? What do you say to also marching on at Mar-a-Lago, or at their place?
Yeah, and we can have, I'll do a quick answer and then you can answer this too. But I think this kind of fuels back that other question, right? It's yes, would I love to protest Trump? I would love to protest Trump and not rally for so many other things, right?
Yeah.
Give me abortion, give me healthcare, give me all the down with Project 2025. But I think that's the whole point, right? Is that we aren't his constituents. Right? Is that I would never vote for Trump. I've never voted for Trump. I'm not going to vote for Republican probably my whole lifetime. And it's almost what would necessarily be the point in that?
What would be the point in that?
We could stand outside a Starbucks, we could stand outside Amazon, we could be protesting every single person, but when you are organizing a movement, the point is having, it's organizing, right? There's really specific targeted things and ways to target an event, and I think what a lot of us are thinking is yes, could we go to Mar-a-Lago and protest? Absolutely. But is that going to be the best use of our resources? If they don't really care, they're not really going to listen to us anyway.
They're not going to listen to us anyway? Huh? If you think that fighting against the other side, that showing them your disdain will never move them, then why did we march in the civil rights movement?
Our strategy in going into Birmingham was to have daily demonstrations that dramatized for the nation what was the nature of segregation. So we'd have a small group going down and picketing the lunch counter.
But Birmingham is a city under siege, ruled by a strict segregationist, Chief of Public Safety Bull Connor, determined to foil every move they make.
So this was a man who was defiant and brutal, and it would eventually create the spectacle of suffering that would lead to momentous social policy movement, but also strategic changes for King and his people.
They'd give anything in the world if we had some trouble here. If we don't have any trouble, we can beat them at your own game.
Who did they march against? Where did they march? You see, when they went to the Capitol building to march in Martin Luther King's day, they went to march against all of them, both sides, at the place where they reside and do their business, not at the DNC. Because what now you have is a DNC full of this.
From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. From the sea to the river. From the sea to the river. Palestine will live forever. Palestine will live forever. From the river to
And the RNC with nothing. They're so used to not listening to you because you've never spoken to them. Because you think that marching against people who are already against you won't get you anything. That's not called fighting. That's called a peaceful walk in the park with really loud speakers. And I don't think that's what you mean it to be. And that's another thing. Here, the biggest problem I have is everyone's lack of an actual end goal. Listen to these responses when I ask them, what is it they really want? And do they have any suggestions on how to actually get there, besides just protesting at the DNC, the only people who could help them, or they could ally with, to fight the real enemy? How far have they thought ahead on this? What is the top three? Or because there's 100, but achievable, most important goal if Kamala, after her speech tonight, comes down and says, talk to me, what is it that I can do realistically, a goal that we could meet?
I think that's hard because we don't represent the whole movement, right? There are a lot of
no. Well, just you, because I've also interviewed other people, and I'm kind of just getting a feel for it. So when this goes out, we also know what to be talking about when we're on our channel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess for me personally, thinking about all of this, and especially regards to Palestine, an arms embargo to help Palestine, right? But also decrease funding for the military, because there is so much funding going towards the military. We're spending billions of dollars to be able to kill Palestinians. Oh, that's somebody. Is this your family?
No, I don't know who they are.
Oh, I thought you were waving to them.
No, I was telling. Okay.
Okay, but yeah, so I guess arms embargo, reinvest the money from the military into our communities. Let's get free healthcare, right? Let's get better schooling. Let's protect abortion.
Wait a minute. All of these things, every one of these things that you say is the end goal for your protest, is being actively fought for by the person you're protesting. How is that your end goal to this protest?
But again, I'm not necessarily a reformist. I'm not trying to fix what's broken here.
Mm-hmm.
I would abolish it completely and start all over.
How would you do that?
Oh, bro, I'm also a retired school teacher. You're gonna have to take my class. It would take weeks and weeks and a whiteboard for me to explain it. And also, I mean, totally wipe it out and start all over. You want all the answers from me?
No. I'm just asking.
Hold on, there's too many problems there for me to solve one at a time. But I do know that the way the structure is designed is to keep up Eurocentric, Americanized white supremacy intact. It is designed for that. It is not designed for anything other than that. So we would have to start. You're talking about a whole reconstruction of everything, and I think there's baby steps towards that. There's baby steps towards it, but she's not going to do that.
Right.
She's not. If she gets in, she's not going to do it. It's going to be business as usual, bombs as usual. I mean, some things might change, but not instantaneous. Some things might, but not all the way, man.
So, the baby steps. If we can't, we know that there's really nothing that could change it instantaneously, right? What would be something that she could say or do, or anyone up there could say or do, that would say, okay, that's a baby step I can work toward. That's something I could say, we're on our way there. Or is it just impossible?
The only thing is, I've been watching the DNC. I've been listening to the speeches, and they're very pro-woman. They are very pro the people. They're very pro for the working class. I have yet to really hear about any type of accountability of what's going on in Palestine.
And she is working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bringing hostages home.
We must end this horrific war in Gaza. Bring home the hostages and demand an immediate ceasefire.
With respect to the war in Gaza, President Biden and I are working around the clock because now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. At the same time, what has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost. Desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
I like something that you said earlier, that you are their future. They're what their future looks like if we keep allowing colonialism, bombing, the taking away of native land. Back, is there anything you can give them now looking back to make their future different?
I just always wonder, when people came here, why wasn't there a mutual respect? Just like if I were to go to your home, I respect your home, and why wasn't that, we were looked down upon because of who we were, because of the color of our skin, because of our traditions.
And I never got your name, I'm sorry, that's so disrespectful. Say it again.
Letty.
Letty? Okay, nice to meet you.
One last point. I think to think about what can we do to stop it, that is so far advanced in this journey right now. Right now we need to stop the genocide, stop the bombing. The place needs to be evaluated, and people need to be counted. The dead need to be counted. Healing needs to begin. Reconstruction needs to begin. Like, there's such immediate things that are being needed right now, like water, electricity, bringing the internet back. I mean, sanitation,
food trucks. There are food trucks still
kicked out.
Yeah, and there's so many things that need to be happening right now. What's going to happen in 20 years from now? And that conversation can't really be had at the moment right now.
Understood.
It needs to be stopped. But we need to get going.
Sorry, I apologize.
No, right,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I promise to get this out.
So that we can
It is called Political Drain. That's exactly it. So YouTube at Political Drain, and I'll make sure this gets out. Thank you guys so much.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
I mean, this was really amazing. Well organized, non-violent, civil protest. Okay, civil disobedience. But the main thing that I think every one of these protesters, at least the ones that I interviewed, are forgetting is that in order to win the fight, you have to take the fight to the enemy and build alliances where you are. But if you're afraid, or if you think that marching against those people will get you nowhere with them, then you've forgotten the point of peaceful protest. It's not to get anywhere with them. It's to put yourself in a dangerous place so that the cameras can see it. So that when others see how much you mean by what you say and how what has been done to these people means to you, and how far the other side is willing to go to get rid of you. When the hoses get turned on you and the dogs get turned on you. When the jail cells become an everyday occurrence when you're marching because the people you're marching against don't already agree with you, that's when the change happens. All of the Democrats who are getting paid by Israeli money to do things in favor of Israel need that money to get elected, but I believe would have a much better chance of getting what you wanted if they didn't need that money to get elected. On the other hand, all of the Republicans could care less about that money, which is why they don't give it to them, because they have a religious belief that Palestinians need to die, that Israel needs to be expanded, and they don't need any money to support it. That's why they don't get that money. That's why they don't have to get that money. They're already in support of it. They hate them. And if they didn't have to fight against them, they, meaning the Democratic Party, have to fight against them because they have been so shamed by your outrage, by your protests that got televised. That's smart civil disobedience, because when they make that move and the world is watching and the people who may even vote for them are watching and say, hey, did you know that at the RNC you did these things to these people? Hey, I cannot speak to my daughter or my son and have them watch that footage of what you guys did to them in the background. That becomes the catalyst, and those people who may no longer need that money to get elected have a better chance of actually doing what you want. They already want to. I promise you, they already do. There's at least half that already do. They just have a very thin line to walk because politics is nuanced, it's hard, and they also like to fix roads and get health care and help the LGBTQ community and Black people and Native Americans and have people eat food in school when they're poor. There are a lot of things that they need, and the line has to be walked. We can be smarter about our demonstrations. That's the end all. That's the end goal. Because if it's not, then yeah, this is the least you can do. All right, guys, don't forget to subscribe, press the like button. We have so much more footage and coverage coming from this last day of the DNC. Get some merch down there. We got really cool stuff. I Dissent sweatshirts. Winter is coming. You need it. And if you join, we'll have a bunch of really cool live interviews coming up just for channel members only. I sure hope that you could, if you can afford it, and help this channel grow. We got more coming. See you on the next one.